Black God perspective.
Well, it would appear that a lot of our farmers are suffering from a bit of a problem in New York. Let's get right into the story. The thousands of people paid to plant corn and pick apples as well as milk cows in New York often work long, 6 days a week, and earn overtime only after 60 hours of labor. The state is now looking at lowering that time threshold that New Yorkers are now possibly going to join California and New York in phasing in a 40-hour overtime rule for farmhands, a threshold common in other industries. Quote, "We need a better quality of life," said veteran dairy worker Larazo Alvarez. He is among those who say the change is long overdue for an estimated 55,000 agricultural workers in New York, many from Mexico, Guatemala, and other countries outside of the United States. But the prospect is alarming farmers. They warn that the extra costs would wipe out marginal farms, hobble others, and actually reduce workers' earnings if farmers cap hours to manage expenses. While the industry overall may survive, many individual farms will not. Chris Lawton of the Farm Credit East, a lender for agriculture industry in the Northeast, testified this month. At Welcome Stock Farms near Saratoga Springs, Bill Peck said that overtime for 40 hours for his farm, which has 18 full time employees, would cost him up to an extra $12,000 a month. Dairy farmers like Peck say they cannot simply raise the prices to reflect added expenses since wholesale milk prices are already regulated. Quote, "We aren't going to be able to invest in a new tractor. We aren't going to be able to invest in adding another barn." He says that money is going to go into payroll, which is maybe good for them short term, he says, but in the long term for business, our business cannot survive. Crop farmers who grow vegetables and apples say that they would be particularly hard hit when extra seasonal labor is needed. They say higher overtime costs will make them less competitive with farmers in other states. Farm workers in New York did not qualify for the overtime pay until 2020, when the state changed the law to mandate extra pay for workers who exceeded 60 hours a week. The new law also instructed a three-person wage board to consider whether to recommend the lower threshold. Now I'm laughing at this because having worked in human resources for a long time, I know exactly where this is headed for the American farmers as a whole, because of the hours and how much it's going to cost. But let's finish, and then I will give you my thought processes on this in just a moment. All right, so the board on Friday is holding its fourth of four hearings this month, and it will make recommendations to Governor Kathy Hochul's labor commissioner, who can accept or reject or modify them. Average hourly wages for agricultural workers in the region last year were $16.16, according to the federal figures, though some earned the minimum wage of $13.20. Alvarez is a 63-year-old farmer from Mexico City, and he said the overtime after 40 hours would reduce stress for workers like himself and give them a better quality of life. He said, quote, "I'll be able to have checkups at the doctor, and I'll be able to buy personal items. I will have time for me," Alvarez said in Spanish. The wage board could recommend temporarily keeping the 60-hour status quo, which they did once before. They also could follow the lead of California and lower farm overtime levels in phases over several years. Larger farms in California had to begin providing overtime after 40 hours starting this year. Farms with 25 or fewer employees will hit the 40-hour mark in 2025. Washington State approved a law last year phasing in overtime pay for agricultural workers. Several other states offer some farm workers overtime with limitations and exceptions. Trent Taylor, an attorney for the advocacy group Farm Worker Justice, said more states are considering the proposals as the nation grapples with more labor and racial issues. Taylor said, quote, "We're gaining momentum," close quote. Nationally, farm workers were excluded from the overtime provisions of the landmark 1938 Fair Labor Standards Act. At the time, the United States was only 73 years removed from outlawing slavery. Advocates say continuing to leave them perpetuates an injustice against a profession long dominated by, get this, people of color. Quote, "This exclusion of farm workers is the very definition of what we call structural racism. It was a policy rooted in racism 85 years ago and has become so baked in the system that people don't even realize it anymore," said Lisa Zucker, an attorney at the New York Civil Liberties Union. Farmers argue that the well-meaning policy would not be in the best interest of the migrant workers who come north during the harvest seasons to make as much money as possible, often to send it back home. That's because they could be forced to limit hours to mitigate the overtime expenses. Quote, "Hours will go down and there will be less net pay for people," said Mark Russell of the Two Clubs Orchard in western New York. He said farmers are worried about losing workers to other states. Several farm workers made similar arguments in testimony this month. Though hiring more employees is a common strategy for reducing overtime costs, farmers say the labor market is tight and hiring workers could require farmers to invest in more housing. Farmers routinely provide free housing to workers. Worker advocates dismiss the farmers' dire predictions, noting that other industries have adapted to overtime and that New York farms have already adapted to higher minimum wage hours or minimum wages and 60-hour overtime. So there have been others that's done that, and they're saying that that has set the precedence and that these will not suffer. There's one last quote here from Emma Krychek, the Workers' Justice Center, stated just recently. She says, quote, "If there's a lesson to glean from this pandemic, then it is that those who compromise their health, their safety, and their well-being to keep our essential industries going deserve dignity and respect." Now, here is the issue. Here's the issue, and that was the end of the story. But here is the issue. Now, if we put a very great stress on our farming industry, for example, here in the United States, then who, pray tell, would that leave to receive all of the funds from farms? Where would the funding and where would the farming and where would the food come from? Let's just ask ourselves that. If America were to choke the farmers with these particular statutes and these particular laws from state to state that have great agriculture, what would happen? Where would the food then come from? Whenever I see stories like this, they always prompt me to ask certain questions. And well, I want to take a look at China, and I also want to take a look at how much food the United States is gleaning from other countries. So China is the top market for the U.S. Agriculture's exports. That's based on the land that they have here, where they literally own farmland, and then they take that and they export it to their place. So that money does not necessarily mean that they're generating it from American-owned farms. They are growing the food here, and they're sending it over there. So let's get that mindset, okay? And then the other thing is that the United States, as of a certain date, let's just look at this because it is a little delayed whatnot, but this does have an update in it. So the majority of the U.S. imports is a lot of food that comes from China. Now, this is dated 2014. However, there is an update that is here from 2020. Okay, so I'm going to leave the link down below for you, but just take a look at this, because this right here at the very beginning is going to give you the 2020 update to the numbers that are here with the graphs and charts. It's called the Interconnected Food U.S.-China Food Trade, and it was produced by the Wilson Center. That is this graph that we have here. So I want you to pay very close attention to what this has to say here. Again, this update was as late or as early as, or most recent as 2020. But the deal is that that's going to cripple. That's what the intention is, in my impression. When I look at this, when I see these types of stories, I can't help but wonder, what is the underlying factor? And I don't know. You let me know down below in the description if you guys agree with that, or if you guys are, in the chat here. Let me know what you think about that. I say hello to everybody, including Dan Schramm. All of you, I want to say hi and thank you so much for being here. Let me give you guys a quick shout out before we conclude today. This will be the last update that we do for the day. And I'll just say hello to Grace Me, William Craig, Mr. VTech, of course, Dan Schramm, Robert M. Stahl, William, thank you so much, William Craig, also Mark Schumann, Stephanie, how are you today? It's great to see you. Wonderful to see you. Let's see, who else do we have here? Scott, NYC, and then we have the, is that Brodad Files. Okay, hello to you. All right, folks, Jack. Hello, Jack, and We Need Jesus. How are you? Jack Walsh and We Need Jesus. Hello to you. Tyler G., it's so good to see you from Syracuse, New York. So I'm sure that story is something that you are pretty aware of, and if not, you may want to share that. But it's exceptional to see each and every one of you today. I hope that you guys find some of these updates that we give useful, because they are needful, but useful, and that you share them around, because again, these are not major gigantic things, but they are things that affect us on a daily basis, and definitely things for us to think about in this case, right? Bobcat, as well as Kentucky John and Tyler G. Hello and welcome. Sandra DeJesus, it's so good to see you all. You guys know what? This would prompt, tell me if you think that this would prompt people. Sandra, let me know what you all think. Do you think that this would prompt people to purchase from small farms, or maybe barter, if bartering is still something that's able to be done there in Florida? Now, I know that under the wire, in Florida, they outlawed bartering, but in New York, do you think that would be something that they would be able to do? Maybe go to the local farms, maybe some people who have farmers markets or smaller groups of people, and maybe get their fruits and vegetables there. And it's just terrible to see that this is not just the fruits and vegetables, but it's also their dairy industry, because it's dealing with farms across the board. So apparently it looks as if it could be, and I'm not saying that it is, I'm not saying that it isn't, but it could be a way to stifle some of the revenue from coming into these folks' hands, right? Right, I think so. And you know what? Self-sustaining will be independence. Exactly, Scott. Exactly. There you go. Okay? Oh, yeah. And you know, they did that, Scott, NYC, several years ago. And I need to look and see if they have reinstated that and if it was under this seated governor. But I do know that a while back they said it, and it was very under the wire. So I'm not sure if that's going in different states or not, but we'll see. Hey, listen, folks, I appreciate each and every one of you for watching and tuning in. It's only been about 14 minutes, but that's okay. That's all we need to get over this good information, right? I hope that you all find the time to follow me. I am on. Somebody asked me if I was on Getter. I didn't know what Getter was, but now I got her. So now I am on Getter. So you can find me there on Getter. The individual that said that to me and asked me about it, that led me to it, I want to thank you, because it does seem to be a very nice and welcoming place to be. And so I am there now, and you'll be able to find out where exactly you can find me if you go to the About section on this channel, and you can find all of the social media as well. Here on YouTube, you can find me at The Lockhart Perspective for anything that's dealing with biblical principles or biblical things. Please join me there. Subscribe. You may like what you see. For smaller stories that allow me to be a little freer, you can find me at TLP Headlines with a Voice. Again, that's T as in Tom, or The Lockhart Perspective, TLP Headlines with a Voice, that channel dedicated to my sister here, Bettina. All right, folks, you guys take care of yourselves and take care of one another until we see each other again. Hey, I see you, Steppenwolf. Jack, I see y'all. I see y'all. Dwayne Schmidt, y'all sneaking in here on me. Hello, hello. You guys continue to be blessed, and remember that, you know what? If you don't take care of yourselves, nobody is going to be here to take care of you. So remember that the one important thing is that if you don't look out for number one is definitely going to suffer. And I want you to remember one important component, that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. You guys take care of yourselves. Again, take care of one another. Continue to be blessed.
The Lockhart Perspective.